Welcome to Burn the Ship. Thank you for coming back. I appreciate you for joining us as well. Anybody that dedicates the time to come out and chat with us and be a value to the audience does mean a lot to us. So thank you for that. The goal of our podcast is to connect entrepreneurs with professionals that can help you go all in on your business. We talk to people that have walked the walk and talk the talk and experience all the things that we experience as small business owners. And I think we've gotten to a point where we do a pretty good job of trying to bottle up some of those skills and experiences and teach them to that next generation of entrepreneurs. You know, anywhere that we've walked or things that we've experienced or things that we can help you learn from without having to go through yourself makes that entrepreneurship journey that much easier. So we're here as a value to you guys. Thank you for tuning in and thank you for joining us again. My friend, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and your business?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me, first and foremost. I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Hmm.
So my name is Raven. I run Raven Shutley Studios. I'm a wedding and portrait photographer. I do a couple of other kinds of photography as well, but the bulk of what I do is weddings and portraits, really kind of focusing on relationships between people, that kind of a thing. Um, yeah, that's my spiel.
Sure. Where are you located?
Oh yeah, I'm in Houston, Georgia.
Mm.
So I am just what I usually say is just west of Athens and about an hour north of Atlanta.
Where is most of your business from? Do you go to Atlanta a lot, or are you still kind of outside of the perimeters where most of your business comes from?
Yeah, very interestingly, most of my people are in Atlanta, either in Atlanta or in another state entirely. I'm kind of well situated right between the city and the mountains, which I really love. And so it's really easy for me to get to like kind of like Greenville's like a 2 hour drive, so that one's not a big deal. And I'm down in Atlanta very, very often. Yeah.
Sure. So tell me a story. How did you get into doing the wedding and portrait photography? What was that journey like?
Yeah, it was a circuitous route, for sure. I've always been interested in the arts, like different kinds, but never had been interested in photography until after I graduated college, actually. In college, I was an English major. I wanted to be a writer. And I was also a web design minor, so had like some techie side to me as well, as like the artistic, creative side. But after college, I was looking around for a job and trying to avoid retail, as we all as we all have
Sure.
been at some point. And Medieval Times was actually opening their Atlanta, Lawrenceville location nearby. So I was very intrigued. Being a huge nerd at heart, I was like, yes, I will happily work in a castle. Please give me a job.
Hmm.
They were looking for people to be their photo tech. So when you first come in, they take your photo, they get it edited and printed up, and then come around to offer it to people, right? So that was really where photography first kind of like truly came into my life. And I pretty much immediately fell in love with it and wanted to start doing it outside of the job. Was like, what else can I do with this? How far can I push it? Can I find models to practice with people? And then eventually really got a bug for wedding photography specifically after my first ever wedding. I booked it off of Craigslist. If you know, you know.
Hmm.
And it was two 70-year-olds who were getting married for the second time. Each of their previous spouses had passed. They'd found each other much later in life, obviously, and wanted to have a really small, really meaningful kind of celebration for this new chapter of their lives. It That wedding showed me so many different things. Like my understanding of weddings before that had been a very kind of in the box specific sort of look and feel to it. But they just got dressed in their Sunday best. There were no like special outfits. They had about three or four people in this tiny little room of their church. And then they invited us back to their house for like a cake and punch reception and just in their backyard with like all their friends and family. It was lovely and perfect, honestly.
Hmm.
Just really fell in love.
So, what does the transition look like from getting away from
Mhm.
your day job to becoming an entrepreneur and trying to, but go fully into being your own business?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's such a big one. And one that I kind of dipped in and out of often, honestly. Like wanting to like keep a day job for a while, like you want that stability, like you want to make sure that, can I burn the boat? Can I burn the ship? And for me, my biggest thing, and really especially over the last couple of years, maybe like the last five, investing in education for myself has been such a huge part of that growth and that ability to make sure that I'm, burning it down and staying on the island. Um, that I like 100% point to that for like my success in doing that transition over into like running my business full time for sure.
Sure. So what was the hesitancy? Do you think it was a like lack of confidence in your skill or the fear of creating business, or what was the thing that made that a transitional period instead of a clean cut to you?
Oh my gosh, these are such great questions. For me specifically, I think it was, I mean, I'm sure it was a couple of different things. My parents are actually both entrepreneurs as well, so I come by it honestly. In fact, when I did move into working for myself full time, they both celebrated me as like coming into the family tradition.
Sure.
Um, but my dad's owned his own business my entire life. I've never known him to work for someone else, so it was always kind of this um ideal. He and I both are like have that entrepreneurial spirit. And then my mom just more recently became an entrepreneur, like developing a creative business much later in life, which I thought was just really admirable. And that's been more in the past like 7 or 10 years, I think. So both of them were a really big inspiration for me. But at the same time, so it was feeling like I had something to live up to and like wanting to make sure that I got my business feet under me, I think was a big part of it because for a lot of artists trying to make our living with our art, it can be really easy to get a handle on like the creative side and then really easy to ignore or stick your head in the sand about like the business side and the finances and that kind of a thing. So I really wanted to make sure that I understood and had a healthy understanding of what it would take business wise personally.
Sure. And what was it, just doing business intermittently that you think gave you that experience?
Yeah, so figuring out who I was, honestly, like as a business person, like what are my values? Like how do I want to run my business? How do I want to treat my clients? Um, how can I level up my client experience is a question I'm constantly asking myself. How do I make this better for them? Investing in myself. So going to those like retreats, workshops, webinars, getting coaches, like that kind of thing. Even just like free downloads for to help you get your numbers set, any kind of that sort of thing. I was just like devouring all of it. So that, and then also understanding that I can be myself and run my business the way that I want to, and becoming more secure in that knowledge. I think, yeah, part and parcel those two things, really.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. And so from when you kind of went all in on being an entrepreneur, you got to that point of, believing in yourself, that you had prepared yourself in the way that you wanted to and understood what you wanted, how you wanted your business to be represented. What was like your superpower early on? Like, what was the thing that you did really well that helped you grow your business?
So my biggest thing is that I'm really good at um it feels so funny to brag on oneself sometimes and say I'm really good at, but I am about making people comfortable in front of the camera. It's been a skill of mine for a long time, and I attribute part of that to um being really good at bad jokes. That's a big part of it. I really pride myself in my dad jokes, but the other part is understanding how it feels on the other side. So I grew up as someone who did not like having my photo taken, had had some not nice things said to me by photographers, like for like senior portraits and like just not good experiences, right? So I remember like distinctly how those moments feel, and I get my headshots done maybe like once or twice a year to keep reminding myself like it is hard to be on this side, and I want to always have that compassion and to make that and to like make sure that other people do not have that same poor experience that I had, right? Because it doesn't tend to be a comfortable space in front of the camera for most people. um so yeah.
It even like not only is it an uncomfortable thing being in front of the camera, usually you're in front of it for a purpose, right? Like
Mhm.
whether it's a moment that you want to celebrate that comes with a bit of anxiety, or the way that you want to represent yourself in your business or your corporation or whatever it may be. Maybe you're wanting to capture your family and who they are and what their personality are right now before people are entering a next chapter or journey in their life. None of those moments necessarily come with, it's not a freeing thing, to know that we're going to get our picture taken and this is how we're going to be captured and all those things. Like
Yep.
it's definitely a skill amongst video people and people in the photography space to make people comfortable in front of the camera. But I think when you have a strong why you do what you do, like when you have a strong affection for capturing those relationships within people or capturing those moments so people can relive them, it makes people realize that why they're getting their picture or video done or whatever that may be is for a positive purpose for themselves as well. That's where I think a lot of people kind of ignore that part of the experience. Is like you can make people comfortable, but at the end of the day, there's a reason and a purpose and a why as to people are engaging in getting their picture and getting their video done or whatever that may be, or why they want to capture their wedding or why they want to capture something that's going on in their business or their personal life. Um, and I think as a photographer and as a creative, being able to put their why really high on your list when you're thinking about your inspiration for how to attack a creative project is a skill within itself. You know what I mean? It's and it's a different thing to get used to, is trying to figure out exactly why people are going through this experience that not a lot of people adore. You know what I mean? Like, or at
Yeah.
least that's what I've come to learn is the people that do it really well spend a lot of time thinking about why we're, very intentional about every wave of the camera, about every movement, about every pose, about every ray of light. Like everything is very intentional because why people are doing that is important to you. You know, and
Yeah.
that's something that I've learned as well. I don't know, maybe you agree, but um, it's
Yeah.
just a unique thing. What you do is a very unique thing. It's a very creative thing and thing that you have to tie together and meet people where they are in their life. And I think that that's a wonderful, wonderful superpower to have. Truthfully,
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, like, plus one to everything you just said. Like, I, part of my process is really getting to know let's just say it's a wedding couple, getting to know them. Like, why are you doing the things that you're doing day of? Why are you inviting the people that you're inviting? Why are you inviting 300 people versus 50 people versus 5 people? Like, talk to me about like the people who will be there, like the ones that came from very far, the people who have never met before, the people who've never been in the same room together. Talk to me about like why. Yeah, like I want to know all those whys, and I actually attribute part of that to being an English major, in which everything that we studied had a deeper meaning to it.
yeah.
So I'm constantly looking for those deeper meanings. And pretty much every time you're going to find them. Like nobody's out here doing, especially not my people, they're not out here doing things just for like kicks and giggles. Like
Oh yeah,
it's specifically choosing these moments, these things, these locations with intentionality and meaning for sure.
for
So,
sure.
and I love capturing that for them.
What do you think has been some of the some of the more difficult things? Because it seems like you did a decent amount of preparation, right? And it seems like you're pretty confident in your actual skills as a photographer. What would you say are some of the obstacles that you've overcome, both from a business and a creative perspective? Because I know it's hard for those two things to merge.
It's definitely can be. So I would say like on a personal or creative level, I think when I first came into the industry or came into like doing art this consistently, it's definitely the trick was definitely about finding myself and not just trying to not allowing other people to try to tell me how things should go, especially in a creative space, right? Or like trying to put me in a box or saying like this is how you do these photos and these are the things you have to do on wedding day and that kind of a thing. And taking a little while working under a bunch of different people, working a lot of different like sort of side hustle photography jobs. I mean, aside from the castle, I've also worked for Santa. I have worked at like cheesy mall photography jobs, and every single one of them has given me so many skills that like I still use on a daily basis, which I think is just really neat. But anyway, so like being able to, and also having shot many different kinds of photography. I mean, like I've done real estate, I've done fashion, I've done pets, I've done pretty much anything I can think of. I've done products, and all of them gave me skills that I'm now able to use, and also able to figure out what did I like about this thing? What did I not like about this thing? What did I learn from this that I can bring over here, even though it's not necessarily something people would normally associate with each other, right? Like how can I bring product photography into weddings, that kind of a thing. So that on a creative level, like understanding that I am allowed to do things however I want, or learning the rules in order to bend them or break them as I want, right? And then business side, just learning that I can't bury my head in the sand all the time, and that I do actually have to do this part as well. When you're entrepreneur, you have all the hats and you are the person to go to, until you start developing a team anyway. So understanding that like in order to um, keep going, to have longevity and to have sustainability in your business, that you really do have to tend to each part with just as much intentionality as you do the art section of it too.
Sure. Tell me this. I'm curious to this because we hear it a lot with creative people.
Mm-hmm.
What what was deciding how much you were going to charge people for what, like for you? What was that journey of establishing pricing like?
Yeah, that one was also a wild ride. So first coming in, I know that one of the things that, and maybe this is true for all creative professions, I'm actually not sure. You tell me what other people have said. But when I first came in, there's a gut reaction to kind of look around, see what other people are charging, decide, well, I'm not as good as them, so I'll just lower it to a random number that feels okay and doesn't feel scary, and start with that one, which is fine. But as long as you know that like that number needs to change and eventually have like meaning behind it. But definitely at first, it was just kind of random numbers that meant nothing and that I felt comfortable asking another human being for.
Hmm.
um, that was definitely like the first couple of them. And then after that, it was more about, oh, okay, I need to figure out like how much work is going into each of these things that I'm providing, right? Like what's my hourly rate given like all the showing up, the doing the work on the day, and then doing the work after with all the editing and delivering and things like that. What are all the subscriptions and products and like that kind of a thing? How do I factor those things in? So eventually I was able to develop an hourly rate, and then kind of just figure out and like make sure all of those things were included in there, so that everything was basically covered in a way that made sense.
Does that clash with you creatively, right? Because that was a very businessy answer, right? And not
Yeah.
that it's not the right answer or part of the answer. I think just to tell you what we hear a lot from other people,
Yeah.
right, is that yeah, it is very instinct to like weigh yourself against the market. You know what I mean? It's like other people are charging this, and I feel like I'm not as good, so I'm going to do X Y Z number. That
Yep.
feels good, right? That's that experience that you described, and I think that two things tug on people's mind. It's like don't be too cheap because then you're undervaluing yourself, you
Yep.
know? And then the other side, like that's one shoulder, and then the other shoulder is like you you should do this for as cheap as possible because there's other things that you're getting value from it. You have to build a portfolio.
Yeah.
You convince yourself to always be in this, this era of preparation, right? You know what I mean? Like it's always of I'm working toward this place, or I'm getting toward here. And I've seen people in that whirlwind for years, for 5 years, right?
Absolutely.
Talented people, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? That just have a hard time making the business side of their brain and the creative side of their brain meet at a point and say, here's where we are creatively and the value that we have for ourselves. And
Yep.
here's what we know about our market. Here's what we know
Mhm.
about what people are paying for certain events. Here's what I know I like to advertise. You know, here's how I know how much time these different things takes. Like, especially in studio portrait photographers, right?
Yeah.
Their average ticket versus someone that's doing event photography or photography for weddings is going to be extremely different. I
Yeah.
have clients in the portrait photography space, and their average tickets a lot of times like less than $250 because you're
Hmm.
coming to their studio. The studio's set, like they know their lighting is already set up. It's not mobile, and then you have like, and then people kick themselves and they're like, why would I spend $7,500 for wedding photography or like I have a good friend of mine, and this is obviously not a good solution for everyone, but he does like $15,000 wedding videos. But it's
Yep.
like what you would see on, the E network,
Yeah.
where everyone's mic'd up and every second goes recorded, and they have stationary cameras set up everywhere, and it literally looks like NBC produced it. You know what I mean? Like they do a wonderful job. But I think that what a lot of people experience is that. Yes, you oftentimes don't know enough about the business side of things or your market to know exactly what to charge. But the other side of the thing is like I know that I am this level of photographer or videographer, whatever level that may be. You may think you're a 3, you may think you're a 10 on the scale, you know what I mean? But there's still like how do I portray how good I am in a way that I do what I'm deserved, right? Or like, and how much work am I going to actually put into these one transactions? Like, it's just a hard thing to get the creative side and the business side to speak the same language. You know what I
Oh
mean?
my God.
Even though it
Absolutely.
feels like an easy thing to know, you know what I mean? It feels like an easy thing to go out there and find the answers to when you go see this is the type of stuff I do. Here's what other people charge for the
Hmm.
same stuff, and here's how much the average person has in their bank account that I talk to based on where I live or how I market. But it's hard
Yeah.
to get that creative and that business side of things to speak the same language, and it takes time because the side effects of those things is either lack of confidence in your work, right? It's like
Mhm.
I'm getting charged so much money that I don't know if I did a good enough job, and then you agonize over work that you did well. And then there's the other side of things like, oh, I think I offered this for, too inexpensive.
Yep.
And I feel like I do way too much work for the amount that I like. It's a constant tug and pull and tug and pull. But I guess my question would be, what advice do you have to those other creatives that are kind of tugging and pulling one way or another, trying to figure out how to overcome their pricing struggles?
Oh my God. So, I mean, a big part of that is going to be like mindset.
For
And
sure.
um, I know that every single person listening slash watching is going to be familiar with the concept of imposter syndrome,
Oh yeah.
hands down. Like it's the thing that I see, I think more often than anything else, like in my different like photography groups or like business groups, they're always like, hey, can somebody look at my website and tell me if you think I'm worth this amount that I'm charging? And like that's not really the question. I mean, like I obviously like that's the question that we all ask and constantly ask. Like I actually just adjusted some of my pricing because I was like, this has actually been too low for way too long.
Yeah.
Like I'm actually ending up paying you for this,
Yeah.
and that is not how this should work.
But it isn't
Um,
a validation thing when you look at like when you throw that hook out there for people like does this paint the message that I want? It's not a validation
yes.
thing for you.
Well, like not really that. It's more about like so recently I've really been working on making sure that like the value is as obvious as you can make it, especially for something like photography where like most people coming in or like most people planning a wedding are doing it for the first time, and they have never done this stuff before, they've never priced these things before, and they have no idea what they're looking for, what they're looking at, any of those things. So trying to I might be getting too businessy again, I'm sorry, but they have no idea what they're looking at or looking for, and so like trying to make sure that you can help them as much as possible up front to like
Sure.
show value. um I don't know, that's a piece of advice that's probably kind of separate, but I mean like that tug of do I need to change my prices, do I need to up my prices, like I mean I feel like that's something that is constantly ongoing, and I don't know that you'll ever really like you'll never be like okay, here's where my pricing is going to stop and now I'm done. Like you're going to change the things that you offer, you're going to like reduce your expenses and maybe lower your prices again. Like, I have no idea. Or like maybe you'll be like, this one piece of something that I offer is no longer really serving me and my clients don't really care about it. So I'm going to take that out. And now that package is cheaper.
Sure.
Or like, yeah, I need to go ahead and raise my hourly rate because XYZ is happening, or I'm taking on fewer clients per year. Like those numbers are always going to have to change. But the rest of it is, I mean, A, you are not your ideal client. So like just because it's a number that makes you uncomfortable or that like you might not pay for the same thing, that doesn't matter. Like you are
Sure.
not your ideal client. And so you don't have to worry about like judging that. And then the other part of that is like it is never up to you to decide what your client should be spending. So if you come in with this, I actually learned this at medieval times. If you come up to somebody with a excuse me, a $20 photo in a paper frame and you say, "Hey, would you like to buy your photo today? It's only $20." That's a very different sort of like sales experience than somebody coming up and saying, "Hey, this is like $20. Do you want to buy it?" So like
Yeah.
obviously like it's very different mindset sort of thing behind both. Like one of them you've told me at least there's like a positive value to this thing that you're selling me. The other one is I don't even think this is worth it, so why would you want to pay $20 for it? um so like it's not my responsibility to decide like how they spend their money or like the things that they value. I'm just presenting the value itself, and like if they want to spend it then that's their choice, but like it's not, I'm not in charge of how they spend their money basically.
Sure. Sure. No, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, and you're not it's I'm trying to compose my thought here, but you're I actually like what you said about trying to think of other ways to be valuable, right? And I'll kind of reposition that thought, right? It's one thing to say think of other ways that you can be valuable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And try to keep top of mind things that you can do to convince yourself that you're worth what you're asking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think you can do that kind of retroactively as well as like I think it's a healthy thing for business owners and especially creative business owners to
Mm-hmm.
look and think, okay, what is like take a sheet of paper and write down all the value of the things that you do, right?
Yeah.
And when I say value, I mean like not deliverable items. I don't mean
Mhm.
oh, they get 8 of this photo, and I'm going to print some of these photos, and they get a keychain like what you get from your high school when they do your yearbook picture. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I mean, think about it from especially like a wedding photography
Yep.
experience, right? Like customer experience is like if they hire you and you articulate what you do well, right? It's one of those things that they get to check off of a box and say, I have found someone that I trust to take this off of my plate, right?
Yep.
And I promise you, depending on how well the wedding is planned and how many of those things the bride and groom or whoever may be coordinating
Mhm.
has checked off in their brain of like, oh, there's 100 things in my brain and 95 of them have checks where I'm like, I have someone that I trust to handle those things.
Yep.
That is extraordinarily valuable. If
Oh
you
my gosh.
getting someone as close to enjoying the moment for what the moment
Yeah. Hmm.
is a super valuable skill as someone delivering a creative service to people in a time of stress, right? If you
Yeah.
can find a way to say what you do and the value that you bring to people in a way that goes, I trust this person to do a good job. I'm not going to sit over their shoulder the whole time at the wedding and watch what they're doing. I'm going to enjoy my moment. I'm going to live in my moment and I'm going to go through this experience and whatever comes out of it later, I'm at peace with because I've already decided that I trust these people that I'm doing business with, right? So not only are you just taking pictures, right, lighting really well, or, you're a whiz with Photoshop or After Effects, right? You are protecting someone's moment that is so valuable to them in a
Yes.
way that very few people in your industry know how to articulate. So like yes, find other ways to be valuable to your customers, but not just that. go ahead and make up your mind that the value that you're bringing to people because you do such a good job and work so hard, it's already worth it, right? Like
Yeah.
that's a decision that you can make just by looking at your own work and deciding, I remember the experience that I help these people have. Let's just
Yep.
keep doing that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I like one of the actually this is some sort of more recent stuff that I've been doing is trying to look at the benefits versus the features, right?
Sure.
It's a really, really like concrete example that was recently shown. Like we were looking at a like a Microsoft computer, like just a PC, and how they advertise versus how Apple advertises. And I work on a PC, but I have an iPhone, so I am not biased either way. But the way that Apple advertises is very much benefits based, right? They're like, you're going to get lightning fast editing speeds, like just to talk about like a graphics heavy one, versus all the numbers and letters that I could not even tell you from like a PC or like a Windows machine or a Dell or whatever. Um, like these numbers may mean the same thing, but they don't really to me when I'm looking at these things, especially if I'm not very like tech savvy,
Sure.
right? So I'm looking for lightning fast editing speeds. Oh my God, they literally said the thing that I'm looking for. I'm going to go with this choice. And it's the same thing with I mean with anything really, but especially with focusing on the benefits that you bring your clients in your work. So like for me, it's like I offer 8 hours on your wedding day versus I offer like coverage of all the most important moments of your day from the moment that you're getting ready with your closest loved ones to the moment that everybody sends you off in a celebratory fashion. Like they mean the exact same thing, but like they don't feel the same.
Yeah, they don't paint the same
So,
picture.
no, not at all.
Yeah, for sure. And then you think about who your client is, right? Like
Yep.
if you're at Apple is um marketing
Mm-hmm.
to people that want to solve a problem, right?
Yeah.
Like I have a problem, I need to be able to edit faster.
Yeah.
Well, Apple says they have a machine for me that allows me to edit faster.
Yep.
But then like your Nvidia and your AMDs and your Intels of the world is like, they just had 3080 whatever graphics card and now we're coming out with 4090. If you're already in that club, and it's a huge
Yeah.
club, right?
Yeah. For sure.
And then you say, "Oh, I got 4090, you have 3080, mine's better," right? And then you
Mm-hmm.
look at those, and the reason they don't articulate benefits is because you just bought a new $1,500 graphics card that's 5% better than the last one that you just
Yeah.
recycled, right? So like,
Yep.
there there's mind games to all there's intention to all marketing, you know what I
For
mean,
sure.
and the way that they play and interact with their clients. And for the most part in the creative space, your clients are those people with a problem. I need to be
Yeah.
able to capture this moment, or I need to look a certain way to really feel like myself when I interact with my clients, or the million other things that you can be solving by,
Yep.
creatively overhauling the way that you look, online or in person. um, that it's just you can find ways mentally, and a lot of it goes back to mindset, like you said at the beginning. It goes back to the way that you've made your mind up about who you are and what your business is, and being excited
Mm-hmm.
about it.
Yep.
And I'm here, and you're here, and we're all here as this network of people that want to assist in that journey. You know what I mean? It's a very human thing. I say it all the time on the podcast, but like the way that humans identify patterns, or the way that humans want to empathize and interact with other humans, it's all very human things. And overcoming some of those human reservations of asking people for money or outlining the value that you bring for
Yep.
people, or just 90% of the things that you learn in sales,
Yep.
um, it really changes the way that you are, that you represent yourself in your business and how you feel and the way that you say those things with conviction. And it's an exciting ride. But tell me this: if people want to buy something from you, especially our people in the Atlanta area or North Carolina, maybe whatever that looks like, where do they find you? How do they buy something from you?
Yeah, so my website is ravenshutleystudios.com. I'm actually about to announce a new offer for like branding sessions, by the way. So
Oh,
this is
cool.
it's one of the things I really love doing. Like I want to like capture how you run your business and like make sure that your personality and like that your brand are coming across like through the photos that you're using online. So that announcement is coming very, very soon. Very excited about it. But ravenshutleystudios.com, any of the socials, Raven Shutley Studios. So come hang out with me.
Sure. And then the way that we always end the podcast here is kind of an ode to our name, right? What does it feel like to burn the ship? You know, what are the emotions and experience that you get out of deciding, you know, flipping the light switch and saying today is the day. I'm just gonna live in this entrepreneur world as long as I can and figure it out and overcome these things I know that I face. Like, what what emotionally do you get out of making that decision?
I think it's so amazing that we connected when we did, because I had just heard of the concept of like burning the boats and burning
Mm.
the ships. And it spoke to me in such like a very specific um, way and such a specific time. I recently keep saying the phrase turning my fear into fire. I just got chills saying it. Sorry, that's really
Mm.
dorky, but but it is truly like in my most scared and terrified moments, I'm like, okay, how am I going to turn this anxiety into excitement? How am I going to turn this fear into fire? It is so scary and so exhilarating and a bit like a roller coaster. In that it's the same exact feeling. It just depends on what you do with it, right? So either you're in charge of this roller coaster and you're deciding where it's going, or you're just hanging on for the ride and it's very scary. So yeah, so all of those things.
Yeah. No, it's an exciting thing. I always boil down those moments to like right before I get out of the car to go to a sales meeting, or like right before I get out of the car to go to a networking event. I'm like, all those I just let all those human feelings compound on me. Like, I just let them,
Yeah,
I feel all of them as hard as I can feel them right before I get out of the car. I'm like
I love that.
anxious that it's not going to go well, or that I'm not going to do a good job, or that I won't be accepted, or I'm wearing the wrong thing. And then I let myself feel all of those things. And then I like take a deep breath and I just swallow them. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and then you get out of the car and you just let it be a different thing. You know, it's a journey and it's an experience, and it's a tough thing to go through, is learning how to manage those emotions, and mostly learning how to decide that you are enough. You know what I mean? And decide
Yes.
that your product is worth standing beside and doing a good job for. So I appreciate you very much. I really do. Thank you for coming on the podcast and spending a little bit of time with us. We'll edit it. We'll put it out there to the world. If you want any of the raw footage or any of the clips or anything like that, you're more than welcome to it. We love for people to share our stuff. And if you want to leave the audience with some last words, go ahead. The floor is yours, my friend.
I think I just really want to circle back to like fear into fire. One of the phrases that that keeps echoing in my mind, especially like as I've been just focusing on my job, is oh no, no, I've lost it. Of course I have. Anyway, but oh, feel the fear and do it anyway. That one really, really echoes with me. Like the ski trip that I just got back from, the like really anyway, anything that feels scary, like feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah,
It's meant to me.
for sure. Well, thank you, my friend. I really do appreciate it. All right, burn the
Yeah.
ship.
Thank you.